Hi everyone, I'm Paul Zero. In this video, I'm going to give you a super intuitive breakdown of BLDC motors. Before we dive in, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Now, to start off, let's take a look at the basic structure of the motor. A three-phase BLDC motor consists of two main parts, the stator and the rotor. The stator is essentially a set of coils. When you apply current to these coils, a magnetic field is generated. This creates north and south poles, which is the fundamental principle of how an electromagnet works. Now, a BLDC motor is a three-phase system where the stator coils are spaced 120 degrees apart, and by applying current, we turn them into electromagnets. Now, the rotor is made of permanent magnets. Unlike the electromagnets we just discussed, these maintain their magnetic field without needing any electric current. We use these magnets for the rotor, placing them inside the three-phase stator, just like this. Through the interaction between the stator and the rotor, we generate rotational force. And that's exactly what a motor is. Next up, let's take a look at back-EMF. The back-EMF of a motor varies depending on how the permanent magnets are arranged during the design process. In BLDC motors, the magnets are radially magnetized, which results in a trapezoidal waveform. However, by changing the magnetization pattern, we can produce a sinusoidal waveform instead, which is what you'll see in a PMSM. In this video, we'll distinguish between BLDC and PMSM based on these waveform differences, as they ultimately determine the specific control techniques for each motor. Next, let's take a look at the 6-step control of a BLDC motor. With the rotor in this position, we'll apply current to the stator to create an electromagnet. Then, we can represent the magnetic flux vectors for phase A and phase B like this. The resultant flux vector is shown here in yellow. Now, the rotor rotates to align itself with this resultant vector, and the next steps rotate the motor using this same exact principle. In this method, we only apply current to 2 out of the 3 stator coils to create an electromagnet. This is exactly why we have 6 distinct steps. Now, if you look at the screen, you can see the rotor is perfectly aligned with the yellow resultant flux vector. This means the angle between the stator's magnetic flux and the rotor's flux is currently 0 degrees. However, to generate maximum torque, the angle between the stator flux and the rotor flux actually needs to be 90 degrees. In practice, to keep the motor running, we have to switch the electromagnet's position before the rotor fully aligns with that yellow flux vector. To make this concept a bit more intuitive, let's imagine the yellow line is gone for a moment. What you're seeing here is essentially the N and S poles of the electromagnet, pushing and pulling the poles of the rotor. This interaction is exactly what creates the rotational force. So naturally, if you want the motor to spin faster, you simply switch those electromagnets at a higher frequency. Next, let's explore the concept of torque ripple. As we briefly touched on earlier, let's examine how torque varies depending on the angle between the stator's magnetic flux and the rotor's flux. First, when the angle is 0 degrees, you'll notice that the torque is also 0. However, as the motor rotates and reaches 90 degrees, it generates its maximum torque. By keeping the stator flux fixed and rotating the rotor, we can clearly observe how the output torque changes throughout the rotation. Now, let's examine the torque ripple specifically during 6-step control. The main drawback here is that we can't maintain that perfect 90-degree angle. Instead, the angle fluctuates between 120 and 60 degrees with each step. The motor starts rotating from a 120-degree difference, and once it hits 60 degrees, the electromagnet switches, resetting the angle back to 120 degrees to continue the rotation. This is the fundamental difference compared to PMSM, which we'll cover later. In a PMSM, we use vector control to keep the stator and rotor flux at exactly 90 degrees at all times. We'll dive deeper into that in a future video. Then, let's take a look at the torque ripple of a BLDC motor on a graph. As you can see here, continuous torque ripple occurs during the 6-step control process. The magnitude of this ripple is approximately 14%. This constant fluctuation is one of the key characteristics of the 6-step method that we need to keep in mind. Next, let's talk about inverter driving. We use a 3-phase inverter to send current through the coils, which creates the electromagnets we need. By utilizing 2 phases at a time and toggling the high side and low side switches on and off in the right sequence, we can keep the motor spinning continuously. Now, to increase the motor's speed, we simply increase the switching frequency. As we speed up the on and off switching, you can see the motor begin to rotate at a much higher speed, just like this. Finally, let's take a look at the Hall sensors. We use these sensors to track the exact position of the rotor's permanent magnets. When the north pole of a magnet approaches, the sensor outputs a high signal, and when it moves away, it outputs a low signal. By monitoring these signal changes, we can divide the rotor's position into 6 distinct sectors. This allows us to determine exactly where the rotor is at any given moment during its rotation. For example, in this current position, phase A outputs low, phase B is high, and phase C is low. Now, as the motor rotates slightly, phase A stays low, while both phase B and C output high. If we rotate even further, only phase C remains high. Through this process, we obtain a total of 6 unique Hall sensor states. But here is a critical point. A state where all signals are high or all are low can never occur during normal operation. If you see such a state, it means the sensor is either disconnected or short-circuited, indicating a serious fault condition. Now, we can use these Hall sensor signals to drive the motor by creating a predefined commutation table. This table tells the controller exactly which switches to turn on and off based on the current sensor state. However, there is one important thing you must keep in mind. Hall sensor output patterns can vary depending on the specific motor manufacturer or design. So, you should always verify the sensor's output sequence carefully before programming your control logic to ensure everything works as intended. In our next video, I'll be back with even more in-depth and practical content on motor control. If you found this explanation helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel to stay updated with my latest tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.